Well, in Kenya, rains have been pounding this country for just over 2 months now. It is the long rain season. And so we have seen in most of the areas that are affected, especially in the center of Kenya, landslides where houses have actually just gone down in mounds of soil. In Western Kenya, we have seen people wading through their houses and houses completely submerged in water. In parts of the Lake Victoria region, still in the west of Kenya, the lake has actually increased its water levels, and so a lot of people have actually been submerged inside their homes together with their livestock. The government talking about just over 160 people who have lost their lives. Now, it is becoming impossible for them to move to higher ground, one, because of the curfew restrictions. From 7 p.m. to the following morning at 5, people must remain in their homes. But these people have no homes to remain in. So most of them have sheltered in schools or in church compounds. And this makes it worse for Kenya, which is trying to contain the effects or the spread of COVID-19, because then in these cases there have been no issues of social distancing.
Sarah, I know we're not showing any footage now, but I've seen some of it. Very scary. One example of a sinkhole that just seems to be swallowing the surface of the earth. What do we know? Have scientists been able to tell us what's bringing about this climatic condition?
Well, this is the effects of the ongoing climate change and global warming, especially in the Horn of Africa region, where we have seen the intensity of rain and flash floods increasing. But on the other hand, when a drought comes, then it hits this part of the region very badly. We are also at this time battling locust invasion. And so scientists warning that we should expect these rains to continue longer than expected. They should be ending in May, ideally, but they may continue well into the months of June, and this puts the food security situation of this region, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia and Somalia, all of which are facing similar flooding situations. Their food security situation is then put at risk.
So as you say, on the one hand, the flooding and the insistent rain, and on the other hand, the restrictions on movement due to COVID-19. How are Kenyans coping?
Well, Kenyans are trying to cope, and indeed it's not easy. In the areas that we have mentioned, where there are landslides, where there's flooding, where there's a huge amount of displacements, the government is, together with the Kenya Red Cross, trying to provide food relief to these people. But it is also difficult to reach some of the areas. In fact, we have seen government trying to use boats, where authorities, sometimes even authorities themselves, have been overwhelmed. This weekend, 8 police officers drowned when their Land Rover was swept away by flood waters in one of those parts of the country, as they were trying to access one of the flooded areas to go and rescue some of the people who were affected. And so Kenya finds itself in almost a triple situation. Lives, locust on the one hand, flooding on the other, and also the food insecurity situation.
Sarah, let's switch now to COVID-19. Give us an update of what is happening in Kenya in terms of plans for mass testing.
Kenya began mass testing in some of the epicenters, what it is calling hotspot areas. One of them is an informal settlement just a few kilometers from the SABC office here in Nairobi, called Kawangwara, where we have seen government appealing to residents to actually come out and get tested. We've also seen that happening in the coastal towns of Mombasa. Of course, the government's struggling to get people to buy in to come for the mass testing. Most of them worry that they do not have money to take care of the treatment and the quarantine that follows if one is said to be positive. At the moment, by yesterday evening, Kenya had 490 cases, positive cases. Much of the country still remains open. People are going to work. However, there are containment issues. For example, if you're in Nairobi, you cannot move to central Kenya or to the coast of Kenya, and the borders remain closed.
Sarah Kimani, thank you so much for that update.